Hello friends, and welcome back to the Midnight Horror Picture Show. Today's a special episode as we have our first returning guest, Justin Sulham. And joining him is Em Genovese, star of his second feature, Stockings, Songbird, which is a brutal found footage thriller. Justin Sulham is an independent filmmaker based in Nashville, Tennessee. He has directed 2 feature-length films, Big Bad Betty and now Stockings, Songbird, both available on Blu-ray and VHS formats at slashvillestudios.com, where he serves as the company founder and owner-operator. Sulham is an award-winning short filmmaker, accomplished music video director, and has been a member in good standing of IATSE since 2015, working on such projects as Dexter New Blood, Severance, and Salem's Lot. Em Genovese is a dedicated actress in Nashville film. Besides Stockings Songbird, her other roles include Hallmark's Someone Like You, Going Postal, and Hidden Blessings, a mockumentary led by award-winning voice actor James Arnold Taylor. With a bachelor's in theater, Em has opera and musical theater training by Vanderbilt professor Sherry Montgomery and accent training by dialect and accent coach Jill Massey. She has additional acting training under actor-director Jeffrey Seymour. Em's other passion is writing, and she trained under a former Comedy Central staff writer as they co-wrote a TV pilot script. She has sold over 30 scripts freelance and is working on 3 screenplays to produce herself. Whether she's acting or writing, Em is always on time and professional. Her goal is to tell entertaining and adventurous stories in a time where laughter and longing have never been needed more. Em Genovese and Justin Sulham, welcome to the Midnight Horror Picture Show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just finished watching Stockings, Songbird. And wow, there's a lot going on. So let's start at the beginning here. Justin, what was the pitch that, or the thought that kind of sparked this idea and got you excited to make this film?
Well, I'll simplify it. I had just come off of Betty, which was a lot more expensive to make, and I wanted to make something else. Had to be budget conscious of that, and so found footage is a great way to be budget conscious and still, tell a feature length story. So then it was just, how can I tell a story that was different? Em and I have talked a number of times about how a lot of found footage is paranormal based, and the spooky, sounds at night and all the things that people have seen, so many times. And I enjoy watching them, I'm not knocking them. I just was like, what can I do that could be different? And Home Invasion felt different, felt fresh in the found footage world. And so I just kind of ran from there. I took some real life elements of things that happen here around the property, maintenance guys knocking on the door and coming in to fix this or that. And I just thought to myself, what if an individual was put into a situation with a maintenance worker who's not a maintenance worker? And then I just developed the character of Marissa, and Em, was born to be Marissa. So it was, it was a great fit. And, that's my end of it. Em, do you have anything?
Yeah, Em. So as an actor coming onto this project, like what about this script did you see and were like, yep, no, this seems like something I want to do? What drew you to it?
I'd say the dialogue sounded very realistic. The way that she reacts to things is very relatable, and especially the conversations between Marissa and her husband, those felt very real. And a lot of what I had done before was very dramatic, like soap opera type stuff. So this felt like a really fun change of pace to just kind of be very minimal and show the everyday realness that is part of the fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your approach to that really lends to the film, because you're right, it's not, and you don't play it as melodrama. I don't think any of this is really played for the melodrama of it, but your approach, and I think like for a film like this to work, you need that main character, that Marissa of this, to be likable relatable, and like someone that your audience is going to immediately like identify with or care about. So Justin, tell me, was this like when you wrote this, did you have M in mind, or
I did not. I did have M in mind for just something in general. We had been on each other's radar and social media through the industry for, I don't know, at least a year, if not more. So I had always hoped that we were going to like creatively cross paths at some point on something. And when I put out the casting call for this, there were I got a lot of interest and some great fits, just not right. You know what I mean? Like, there was something about them that just didn't click. Em read for it and it clicked, she clicked immediately, but I wanted to do my due diligence of like, okay, like, let me really weigh this out. Is she, quote unquote, perfect for the part? And so I had gone through a number of scenarios in my head of different scenes, right? Like when you cast a character, I think it's like, I can't speak for sure for others, but I do know based on conversations I've had, they're like, oh yeah, when I had this part, I knew they were perfect for it. I was like, what about the little parts? Like, what about every part? Just like think. And so I watched the movie in my head and I saw her in it and I thought, this is great. So she came over for an in-person read because we live very close to one another, which was helpful. And, she crushed it and I offered it right then and there because I knew like she had what it would take to take this character and bring it to life with the range that this character would need. I mean, I'm assuming we need to stay in like relative spoiler free territory, even though I tell you, the outcome in the first 2 minutes of the film,
right?
The details, right? The moments that happen throughout it. I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but like if you think about those really intense moments, she had to bring it and she had to take it from like a 7 to like a 20. She had to go. And I knew she had the ability to do that. Couple that with her extensive stage acting experience. And, she was perfect for the role because I knew she could be adaptable.
M, for you on set, how was that process of going from, the mundane to the very intense, especially from like scene to scene in most cases?
It was a fun back and forth because we didn't film everything exactly in order. So some things are high intensity and some things are kind of back to a normal, ordinary life. But it felt very much like a play because there's really no crew and the cameras are very minimal and far away, or they're, in my hand like a prop. So you're not very aware in the same way as being on stage. And so I always, have my lines memorized, no problem, muscle memory. I want it really, really solid so that if something changes or we have to improvise something else, I know where it should go and I can keep it going even if there's a mistake or we kind of like a different direction and we want to take it somewhere else. So it felt like a true fun core classic way of acting where you just roll with the punches until somebody says cut.
Right, right. Justin had said that you have a stage background. Did you start in theater before doing film?
Yes, I started at around 12 doing local theater at a warehouse that was like 15 minutes from my house. And I would go after school and I just completely fell in love with it. And then I did theater in high school and then college and after college. And it just teaches you so many great skills about, the dynamics of your voice and having your lines down because there is no take two on stage and you have to just make it work no matter what in the world happened. And then with film, you get to really make it subtle and fun and bring it way, way in because it's so much more intimate than stage, which is why I love film. There's so many little subtle things you can do to connect with an audience.
And I've heard so many actors talk about how hard that change can be for the playing to the back of the house to really honing it in and paring down your gestures and your performance in general for the camera that's only a couple feet away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's it. But also, and this is from my perspective, this is the plus and minus of that, right? I prefer, like, I come from a theater background myself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I was an actor before I started doing films, and like directing and writing. But with that, I started with theater. I still use theater actors because you hit on something that I think for our listeners, anyone who's trying to break into acting should like really take to heart. And you had brought up the fact that you knew your beats of what you were doing in every moment, just in case we needed to switch something or whatever, the changes that came along, you knew your track, right? Which is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to turn this way or I'm going to move my hand this way at this time when I say this. And that is such an important skill, especially on independent film sets where you're working with a very small crew and everyone's wearing multiple hats. So there might not be a designated person who's just looking at your continuity the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So for an actor to bring that in to a lower budget film set is just, it's a godsend. To have someone who's keeping an eye on themselves. So with that, you also were talking about how the cameras are a little bit different than like the dramas you've done. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
being a found footage film, they're stationary cameras, and you're not playing to them unless it's like the phone you're holding or what have you. And with that, it really does feel more like a stage play in that it's all about the blocking of the scene, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, Justin, can you talk to us a little bit about your decision with like the home cameras and when you switched to phones and kind of how you mapped that out in the process of writing the film?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, primarily the home cameras, told the story. I didn't want it to be a completely static movie, but I did avidly want to avoid that shaky handheld look that everybody does. So I was like, okay, like this. The whole thing is supposed to be that the police have, acquired her phone, right? And they're sorting through her phone at like what events took place, in the time frame prior to the culminating event. And so, yeah, she would have videos like this, videos that she never got a chance to post, right? She would have them. So I did want to have a balance between handheld selfie type videos and static fly on the wall. But I wanted the blocking to be less boring than what you would expect static household cameras to be, right? Like we're sitting and we're looking at two wides, or we're looking at a wide on two people. Or I was like, no, I want to bring characters to and from the lens so that we have close-ups, we have mediums, we have an assortment of shots that make the audience feel like it's a more dynamic scene, that they're a part of it, right? That they're not just watching these two people have a conversation at a kitchen island. And so it was, okay, I'm on the kitchen hard cam and I've got these two characters having a conversation over on the island about 10, 12 feet away. How can I find a close up here? Because I'm 10 feet away. Well, the answer was if she was already rolling, if she was already in the middle of taking a video, and then Jimmy comes over, she doesn't have a chance to press stop, right? Now, Jimmy maybe just doesn't notice her phone's recording. Obviously that would have buried that whole gimmick. So he just never looks at her phone. Because if anything, Jimmy is a very respectful guy.
Right, right.
He doesn't want to invade privacy. So that gave me the ability to now have a close up of the scene. And so in one of the more intense moments when my character first kind of reveals that he's got an angry side to him, I wanted that to be on her phone. And so to capture that, I wrote it in that she was in the middle of taking a, hey guys type video, looking at Jimmy, and then Jimmy comes wandering over, and she almost got kind of caught, right? So I just played that back and forth all throughout the film, any chance that I had, just to make it feel like the audience was a part of it, that they weren't just watching, a stage play, which of course I'm not digging stage plays, but I'm saying like I wanted this to feel dynamic is the word I keep going back to.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And that can be a challenge, especially, to find those shots in that blocking. But I think you guys did a really good job with it. Let's talk about Jimmy, James, whatever, just for a second here, because not only did you write, direct, and wear, I'm sure 10 different hats on this, you also play our killer. First off, how was that experience? Being one of your main actors in this film that you're already wearing so many hats on?
It wasn't challenging in the way I think a lot of people would assume it would be, right? Which was like the added stress of being on camera, the added responsibility of being a character. It was that I couldn't observe. That was my challenge. I like to look at the frame lines. I like to make sure the talent is standing where I need them to be. I do typically, even with Big Bad Betty, as choreographed as so many of those shots were, as stylized as it was, I still shot it very documentary style. Like I will adapt to a frame. And if I have a specific shot in mind and they miss their mark, but the lighting still works, or there isn't a bogey in the background or something, I'll just roll with it. I couldn't watch that. And so, like in the kitchen, for example, my back is turned to camera the whole time. I can't see a frame. I don't know if I'm standing in it correctly. And so I found myself getting distracted with thinking, like, do I need to move 2 inches to my right, 2 inches to my left? Can people see M right now? Is the focus, because of course it was autofocus, is the focus set on the back of my head? Is it set on, Marissa? So I had those questions running through my head, which was a distraction. But as far as the other elements of me being on camera, it was great because I edit while I'm shooting, whether I'm on camera or I'm not. I'm shooting for the edit. So I delivered my lines in such a way that I knew would work for the edit, and also knew that M could adapt to, because I'd been upfront with it and saying, like, I'm going to remember the bullet points of where my character needs to be, but I might need you to reel me in, and it really helped that I cannot emphasize this enough. She memorized every line of dialogue. She had it logged, and it was so impressive. So I knew I could rely on that. I knew that I could kind of take not necessarily creative leaps, although at some points I do think I did. But I knew that she would keep me wrangled in. And also, if she were to do something, if she kind of let herself go in a scene, I was able to adapt to her. And for the edit, and I would just keep things going until it was time to say cut. And sometimes it would take quite a while to get there because I wanted to see where the scene would go,
Right. When you're making something at this and you have two actors who are playing really well off of each other, yeah, let the camera roll. If you get extra footage, you get extra footage. As long as you're not, getting behind on schedule. If you got the time, absolutely.
Right.
I think for our
Explore.
listeners, yeah, there's no reason not to, because a lot of times it's in those moments that you'll find something like really, really powerful, or like a meaning underneath the scene that is revealed that maybe you didn't see before, right? And that's just a testament to good actors. Your performance, Marissa, because obviously I will say 80% of the film is from Marissa's point of view. So with that, though, I mean, that's a lot on your shoulders as an actor, because it is your story there. One thing that I think you did really well is in moments of conflict, you found your wave, right? You found like the rising action in it, the climax, and the falling action as you kind of like try to dissipate the tension in your character's situation. And that doesn't necessarily clearly break the tension for the viewer, but for your specific situation, you're really navigating some uncomfortable things. I mean, and I think this goes back to what you touched on with the dialogue. It's written in a way where you could play it melodramatic, but instead you've structured this. Was that a natural thing for you, or was it a choice, or was it something that
I think it was a little bit of a combination depending on where in the scene we were. I always like to have a sort of plan, but I never want it to be something that I like cling to. And if the director says try it a different way, I can't veer from it because I've practiced it too many times in my head. So I try to weigh it as, okay, if this was me, how would I react? And I'm usually someone to try and make a joke and diffuse the awkwardness with, a good natured chuckle or something. And I feel like Marissa does that with Jimmy in the kitchen a lot because it's so off putting and he's in your house. So you might as well try and laugh it off so that you're not just standing there like, okay, crickets.
yeah.
But I definitely think it was a combo of having a sort of initial plan to navigate these weird conversations with a strange character while also having the leeway to improvise if he says something that is actually kind of funny. Weird people say funny stuff all the time, that you can keep it a little bit light and it switches things up so that it's not just total fear on your face the whole time.
100%, 100%. And as you say that, I'm actually thinking about especially that first interaction with Jimmy and the signing of the autograph and how that goes. And you are like, it's impressive the dance you do trying to maintain control over the situation, right? I mean, when it comes to like fear responses. So instead of just, everybody knows fight or flight, but there's also freeze and fawn. And I think like employing fawn a little bit to like, oh, haha, you're so funny. And, like, I think there's something very grounded in reality about that response to an awkward situation. I think especially for a female character with a, imposing male character in their home.
Yeah.
Yeah, how was that to like navigate through with Justin on set?
Well, he is such an easy person to work with that like you're really acting to be scared, because he is such a nice guy and so easy to do a scene with. And you just have so much trust in your scene partner that you're like, well, I can really play, because I actually think if you don't practice with your scene partner or don't at least communicate with them, it makes for a tense kind of stale performance because half your brain is always going to be thinking, are they going to try and pull something that I'm not ready for? Are they going to be too scary and I wasn't prepared for a response? But I felt like we were just always on the same page. So I got to, yes, he is a huge guy and he is a scary character. But then the moment they say cut, we're back to making jokes and having a good time. So that made it more fun. And I think it also, Jimmy as a character is also playing with that. He's this sweet, gentle, kind of socially awkward guy. And then he's sitting on the stairs hitting himself in the head. And the audience is like, what is this guy up to? What is he going to do? So I think it was very easy to work with Justin in that capacity. But as a female trying to find the fear, he's in your house and he's not leaving and he locked the door. So you have to come from a place of female survival instinct. Like, even if I have to laugh, I just don't want to be murdered.
Right.
That's usually the goal.
Usually.
Valid.
That's fair. And Justin, for you, for playing the character of Jimmy, at first, it's like a awkward goofiness, and it devolves clearly from there without giving a bunch of spoilers.
Yeah.
But with that, especially in the later scenes with Jimmy, was that all an act from the right? Okay. Can you talk?
Yeah. That was hard for me because like I love acting. I think acting is so fun, but I'm not like I will never call myself a good actor. You know what I mean? I'm a director. I'm a director first, and but I do enjoy it, right? So that being said, I kind of felt like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, right? Like I'm the dude playing the dude disguised as another dude. I was a director who was playing an actor who was putting on an act for this character because this character is another character. You know, like when Jimmy
Yeah.
had that kind of southern drawl, right? That's Jimmy. And the rest was like Jimmy trying to disarm this woman with humor or kindness, but also, when I had been tinkering with, a sequel to the film, if there was going to be more of a backstory on Jimmy, what was that story going to be? And of course, you watch through the end of the film and you understand, like, Jimmy was a part of something. And in my opinion, the way that I had played that scene out was that he was a part of something almost begrudgingly. He had a task. So then it's like, well, then was he this malicious character, or was he just doing what he was forced to do? A little bit of both, right? I think that there were elements of Jimmy that he kind of enjoyed playing with his food. Obviously, Jimmy was considered to be the right guy for the job from this, syndicate of sorts.
Yeah.
So there had to have been dark elements to Jimmy's existence, but that doesn't mean Jimmy. When Jimmy learns of Marissa's condition, that was a big turning point for the character, and that was another example of them and I playing off each other, because when I watch it, it's like it looks like I like throw her, right? Like I like throw her off to the side, and it was me just kind of moving her away, and she, sits down, or she lays down. I don't remember how that played. And then I went and sat down on the island, and the throwing of all the pictures and everything, that was all just off the cuff. That was all just in the moment, like let's explore the scene. Let me see what this character, like I had to become that character in that moment. Like, okay, so like Em was saying, right? Like she would become Marissa. All right, I'm Jimmy. What would Jimmy do? Jimmy would sit down and take a second. Jimmy needs to think this one through, because Jimmy now has a big decision to make. And so, yes, but to answer your question, it was a disarming act to accomplish a task.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we'll touch back on the syndicate of it all later on, because I am very interested in that larger overarching story, or the world that you've created. With this, as Justin was just describing, this was like a very physical movie. What were the challenges you faced with that? Were there any?
I remember Justin saying before we even started filming that like safety is his number one concern for his actors, which is always a good thing to hear, because you're not gonna bump into the director that's like, well, let's actually hurt her, and get that real reaction. So I always felt like I was never gonna get really injured, but you never know. You could bump into something. My biggest bruise was from me just bumping into the counter for absolutely no reason. Wasn't even during a chase. I just turned around and smashed my rib into it. So you never know. But as far as the physicality of it, because he is the attacker and I am the victim, as an actor, the victim controls the pace and the injuries. So when he throws me to the side, I am launching myself into the counter and into the ground. And so that is more on me. And then the breathing, like choking, struggling, stuff like that, you make it sound like you're really being hurt, but his glove in his hand is completely relaxed. So it just felt like a really safe environment. And I don't think we had any really rough physical challenges. I'd say the hardest thing was the sound booth, because you can only rip a door off so many times. So it was more the pressure of getting something right quickly, so that you don't want to mess up and then go, well, let's rebuild an entire sound booth.
Right. And I think that's a good lesson, again, for anyone listening who wants to pursue acting. A lot of people are going to start on low, no budget independent films, which is where you should start. It's how you build up your reel. It's how you build up your experience, besides the stage, obviously, which I would also recommend to anyone trying to get into acting.
Mhm.
But there are filmmakers out there, and obviously Justin is not one of them, but there are filmmakers out there who the whole idea of creating a project is kind of a power play. So, and they think they are this auteur who is just using this as an excuse to play God. And I think anyone who's been around has met that person or worked with that person. I will just say to anyone listening that it is not worth staying on that set, especially if you are put in danger in any way that is not professional. And people want to say, oh well, the great directors got performances out of their actors by torturing them all the time. Look at The Shining, right? And that was just a cruel and frankly unneeded, like completely unnecessary thing in retrospect, where you hire good actors because they're good at acting, so let them act, right?
100%.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing. It's so true. I think so many directors are after a raw, real reaction. But imagine if, the cast of The Shining had felt safe. How good would their acting have been then if they had felt like they were going to be okay by the end of the day? Right. But yeah, I completely agree with that.
I found with the physical end of things, we had a chance to kind of block things out ahead of time. We had like blueprints for each of the scenes. And obviously, like, I was wearing so many hats and so many things happened that I don't remember every intricate detail, but I do recall when I would put my hands on your neck, I never wanted to put this finger. For whatever reason, I would always go like this. Like, I don't think I ever did that. There were just certain things that I wasn't comfortable doing. And for whatever reason, that was one of them. The other one was, and maybe you could, if you remember him, when we did the scene when Jimmy lashes out and smashes the kitchen island, did you know that I was going to do that? Did we discuss that, or did I just do it?
I do think you said you were going to. We didn't practice it. You wanted to shake the camera, and I think you said, I might, freak out and hit the counter.
Okay, good. So I did give you the heads up, because that was the thing, right? Is like M touched on something, like, is he going to do something that I'm not prepared for, right? Like, I didn't want to do that. Like, there was one point later in the film when she's on the floor, I put my tool bag on her back, right? It was light, but I was like, in the moment, it just seemed like the most asshole thing to do.
It was.
I did it. And then, obviously I got what I had coming to me after. So yeah, but the physicality in this film was, it was the most physical I've ever been on camera. It was the most physical thing I've ever really shot. It was the most visceral thing I've ever directed. Obviously, Big Bad Betty was fun, and the shorts that I had directed before had heavier undertones. They were never funny, but they were never quite like this. This was definitely my darkest, not my darkest hour, right, but my darkest creative venture to date. And I couldn't have gotten through it if it wasn't for Em being the pro that she is.
Thanks, Justin.
And I think that's great to hear, because we have the dichotomy of the two of you working together, which seems, as you've described, was like, as soon as we called cut, it was happy. We were joking. I felt very safe the whole time. Where what you made is so bleak, besides like those first 15, 20 minutes, there's not a lot of smiles. So with that, though,
Jimmy smiles.
Yeah,
Jimmy's having a great time.
Jimmy's having a great time. Truth. I can't deny that. So Em, for you, we've talked about you know, how you felt safe and were leading the action. When you watched the film back, or like while you were doing it, were there any moments that you found like genuinely creepy where, you know, it did carried a little bit of the acting for you? There was maybe a real response in that moment, or just watching it afterwards?
It was great seeing the sequence of events and the things that Jimmy is doing where Marissa isn't involved in that scene. I hadn't seen those. So it was really cool seeing how he's building the tension in all these, you know, nice domestic moments of her life. In between that, he is going through a whole thing, and it builds a lot of fear so that even in the nice domestic moments, it's tense for the audience. So when I got to be an audience member and watch it, I thought definitely the nighttime scene where Jimmy is looking in the bedroom, and I didn't get to see any of that. And I'm super ticklish. So when he grabs my foot, I am like clutching that pillow, trying not to react. It would have sounded like, you know, the Pillsbury Doughboy giggling in the background and ruined it. But yeah, there were scenes like that I didn't get to see. And also the last scene of my husband, Brendan, is so good. And I saw him perform that scene, but seeing it edited in was also really cool. It builds to the tension of, you know, where is he? And the only scene that I was like, I'm interested in seeing it, because I think we only did it once, Justin, was the very last scene in the kitchen. Not to spoil anything, but I hadn't really, you know, you only get prop blood once, and you can't do it again. And so I think I was the most nervous for that scene, because I really didn't want to mess it up and have to clean everything and myself and start from scratch. So I was the most nervous about seeing that scene on screen, but I think it worked, and I was glad that it didn't have to be done again, because you want to access that only so many times.
Right. Absolutely.
There was a lot of pressure with that scene, with that moment. That was actually the only moment that another crew member other than myself, worked on the film. We had somebody named Grant come in, and he blew the blood out of a tube under M. That was it. Otherwise, it was just, you know, M and I and the cast making the movie. So it played really well. The tube tried to sneak into the frame, and I was able to make it disappear, which was great.
Good.
But, you know, when the blood, what I noticed, and it's, you know, we're not really going into spoiler territory here, because, again, I show you in the first 2 minutes of the film Marissa's fate.
Right.
I noticed when I was watching it back that the blood does what the blood does, and then she smears it. And she does it in a way like I know what she's doing when I'm watching it. I'm like, she was making this bigger, but she makes it look like she's clawing. You know, she's trying to escape. She's trying to save herself. And so, you know, you made the scene that much more grand, in such a casual, you know, kind of under the radar way, which was great, and it was super helpful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a moment of like making the most of the effect, right? Because with that, I'm interested to hear that it was you hosed in the blood, because I thought, because she's facing away from camera, right, that it might have just been like a squeeze pack squib kind of thing going down when she goes down.
Yeah.
So with that though, having the blood shoot the way that it does, and then the blood that's still pooled under her, to use that as like, you know, I'm clawing away, but the finger marks, the drags in the blood, I mean, it's a very effective image. Yeah.
And then I played with reflections with that too. It wasn't on purpose, but I do try to use reflective surfaces when I can, glass, or I'll skip bounce light off of things. I just like reflections and refractions. And so when Jimmy calls 911, he's in her blood the whole time. You can see him reflected in her blood, which I think was pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm big on practical, and so a hose full of blood was going to be the answer for that. So that's what we did, and then later in the film, it was an air compressor, blood cannon effect for that moment.
Well, and you need that with the force of
Yeah.
yeah. I don't want to ruin anything, but yes, the air compressor. But that's the whole thing. I mean, something as simple, and for filmmakers listening, a hose, like literally tubing that you can get for under $1, and fake blood is such a useful effect that it is used not just on like low budget films, like that's used on Hollywood films.
Yeah.
It's a quick way to achieve that effect that is incredibly cost effective.
What I will tell people, and I learned this in my short film Sanguinary, there was a moment where a young boy in a hallucination scene has a burlap sack on his head. And I had run latex tubing over his head, over his eyes, so that this blood pump was going to force blood to seep through the burlap sack like eyes. Well, latex, when you blow into it, latex tubing, as thick as it is, will swell. It doesn't exert pressure. It just swells like a balloon.
Yeah.
And so it just became like a downpouring of blood. It worked for what it was. So if you're going to accomplish, something like what Em and I did with this, you want to use malleable PVC tubing. You get that at Home Depot or Lowe's. It was a 1 inch inner diameter. So no, 3/4 inch inner diameter. So 1 inch diameter. 6 or 8 feet of it's going to cost you maybe like $14. And then, a cup of fake blood and, boom. I mean, it was more than a cup for this, but, yeah, you can accomplish a lot with a little. You just have to be resourceful and also step outside of the comfort zone of like, well, what does YouTube tell me I'm supposed to do? Oh, well, you're supposed to go to this website and buy this thing. Just do that. Like, you know what? I bought the utility knife for this movie that does the deed. It had a blood pump attached to it. It was supposed to be, and I spent like $80 on this thing because I wanted a photorealistic, a picture realistic utility knife blade. And to do that safely, I had to buy this thing. It broke the first day. It broke the first day. Like the thing that cost me $80 broke on the first day. The blade didn't, luckily, but the apparatus to squirt the blood through, that was gone. So
bummer.
Yeah, you just get creative.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, for when it comes to like tubing and stuff, for smaller bleeds I've done on films, or like for like trickles of blood, I've used oxygen tubing. Same kind of thing though, but I mean, depending on the diameter of it and your blood flow, there's a lot of things you can mess around with. That's not going to cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to, before we move on from this, you had brought up the exact scene that I was thinking about. Did either of you read like the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark books?
I knew of them. I was too scared to read them.
Okay.
I saw them.
Okay. Yeah. So it was in one of them, and like it's something that sticks with you growing up, but it's also like a very popular urban legend.
Yeah.
Where this person's going to bed at night and they're checking to like make sure their dog's with them in the room, and the dog licks their hand and they're like, okay, everything's good. And then they find out the dog's dead. And that's the big reveal is that like there's something written in blood the next day that's like, people can lick too, ha ha ha. And it's like, oh yeah. No, scary, like very scary, especially as a child. But that's exactly like you feel something. And I know everyone, I don't, it's got to be a universal experience, right?
Yeah.
That everyone has had their foot under a cover and then feel something like lightly on it. And suddenly you just pull your foot back up real quick.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It happened to me last night. I was in my kitchen and I felt something tickle my foot, and I have a cat, and I look down to look at a cat and I see a centipede the size of a pearl necklace. I karate kicked my leg in the air and couldn't find it. I have no idea where it is. I know it's listening to this going, you don't know where I am.
It's in your pillow.
You'll never find me.
Oh
But
my
yeah,
gosh.
that's that feeling where you go, oh my gosh, that sent a chill up my spine.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because like even in those moments, it's reinforcing like because in the moment sometimes you can be like, "Oh, it was probably nothing." And then you see something like this and now the next like 20 times it happens, you're going to be like, "Oh, somebody's trying to lick my foot right now." Like there's a man.
Like, it's
So
Jimmy.
I never got close to licking her foot, but I did. I was when I was doing the toe pull thing, I was like, how can I make this more creepy? And it was like sniff her foot. But I didn't actually want to sniff her foot. I'm sure your foot smells fine. But we had just worked all day. And so I just kind of pantomimed like the sniff, with my face around it and did that creepy thing Jimmy does with just like kind of letting his lips pout out with the mask halfway up.
Oh,
And while I'm doing it, I'm like, this is like, this is messed up. Like Jimmy's a messed up dude. I gotta stop. So I just made myself stop and then walked around to the edge of the bed and covered the headlamp. Um,
It was definitely a disturbing scene for sure, and really, I think early on was a good choice to cement the character of Jimmy as like, oh, no matter what comes next, because it makes you rethink him a little bit, right?
yeah.
Like he comes in as the bumbling, and that was a choice too, right? I mean, a handyman as his cover, especially for someone who just moved into these townhouses, it makes sense. Was there any real life, like kind of real life experience behind that idea?
yeah, people come in here all the time. They I gotta change this air filter or that air filter or a refrigerator filter, or we're here to do like the quarterly inspection of the fire alarms, but they never actually set anything off. And like, how do I know you actually work here? Like they say, if you ever want to get on a film set, all you have to do is carry a clipboard. And it's like these guys just knock, knock, knock. Hey, maintenance. And like Marissa doesn't know any better. She just moved in here. Um, she is trying to start fresh, right? We know that she's got a personal health situation that's also distracting her, a good distraction. And uh, the last thing on her mind is like really caring about the inner workings of this townhouse community. Like this guy must be a maintenance guy. He's here. Like, he's got one of the original lines was like, "Oh yeah, he's got a uniform and everything." And then I went and saw Jimmy's wardrobe changed from what it was originally going to be very much. It was supposed to be same mask, but like a jumpsuit, like a maintenance jumpsuit. And then I went and saw the new Faces of Death like 2 days before we started filming. Well, at one point, that character puts like the exact outfit on. And like we've seen jumpsuits in many movies, but it was the time between that release and this filming. I was like, I gotta pump that. I gotta make a change. And so I just gave Jimmy like a casual, basically like how some of these guys dress on the property, except without the townhouse, because they all wear the same jacket, without the townhouse jacket. Just make him look like disarming, make him look like an actual maintenance guy. And so like I don't think I called that jacket like a members only jacket. It's just like this cheap yacht boating type jacket. You don't really see killers wearing that. Usually they're wearing something that's cool or hip or like interesting that'll sell costumes, right?
Right.
That wasn't Jimmy. Jimmy had to get in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So to do that, Jimmy had to look like, maybe the guy next door.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it plays on a very real fear, and that's what makes it so effective, right? Thank you guys so much for coming on. With the world of Stockings, I'm assuming the next one would be colon something else, since our Songbird did not make it. Uh, do you have plans for the larger Stockings universe?
I had originally planned on taking this and kind of building up upon it with a sequel and possibly a series of installments. Putting that on the back burner, possibly taking it off the table. I don't know that I want to go back into that universe. It was kind of a dark place.
Sure.
I did start writing a sequel. The sequel has elements of Marissa through different ways that we can have elements of Marissa. And then it's a very heavy police story, but I don't know that I'm going to explore it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have something else that you plan on working on next, or are you figuring
You
that?
know, there are a few things. One, I've got an NDA. I can't discuss it. So that's all TBD. I've got another opportunity that's kind of presented itself over the past 2 days that doesn't have an NDA on it yet, but it will. So I can't get into that. But it would be building upon something that I've already done, which is exciting. Yeah, so right now it's kind of a gray area with what I can touch on as far as what's next because NDAs and just the
Sure.
interest of trying to
That
but yeah, if Stockings were to continue, it would be Stockings Dear Detective. And that's why I have Jimmy's Dear Detective line. And then we end up learning that that's one of many people that have said those words in a similar circumstance. And, who is it? Who are these people?
right, right. No, I think that's a very interesting concept. Should you revisit it? I think that's a lot of fun, but clearly you got a lot on your plate, and NDAs are unfortunately the nature of the biz.
Well,
So
I know that M's got some really terrific opportunities coming down the pipeline as well, and I wouldn't want to write something with elements of Marissa if I wasn't going to be able to have elements of Marissa. Like we both saw her performance in this, and we know that like as soon as the right people see this film, her career's just right.
hun-
So
100%, 100%.
100%.
Your talent is very clear.
Guys, so
Through
much.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for segueing me, Justin. So, what do you have coming up? Where can people see you next?
So there should be a premiere coming up for another horror movie called Going Postal, which is about a crazy mailman who kills people. And I play a fortune teller girl that has like a witch coven. And I think that should be premiering in the fall and might be streamable on Paramount, but that was just something somebody said. It may not be true at all. And I'm in a friend of mine's short film that should be premiering at the end of this month. And possibly I'll be acting in another short film of a friend in Huntsville, Alabama. He has kind of a cool Twilight Zone thriller murder mystery idea that he wants to play with. And it will be short, but it was a really cool concept. So we've written it together and hopefully it'll be something we can film pretty soon. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I have on my plate right now as far as where you could see me again.
Well, that's really cool that you have these other opportunities coming up. You will have to keep us updated so we can update our site. If,
Absolutely.
when any of these are released or online, I'd love to share with
Sure.
the audiences. Where can our audiences follow you to get the updates on this?
I am mostly on Instagram at M Genovese. And I also bake, and I have a little baking page on Instagram called Let M Eat Cake. And it's really just posts of the things I have made. I find stress baking very cathartic and helpful because acting is such a roller coaster of stress. And even though I love it, it's very good to have a hobby where you do something with your hands, get the accomplishment hormones, and eat it as well because hopefully it's delicious. But yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram, and I just updated my IMDb, so that should also be a good place to look for things.
Wonderful. And for listeners, we will link those in the show notes. And just real quick to touch on this, the people closest to me know that I am a stress baker. That is like literally when I'm like coming off of a project or like getting overwhelmed, I am making like cookies, pound cake, like
Yes.
whatever.
Oh
And
my
that
God.
is, yeah, no, the, the calming effect of baking is like, unlike anything else. And for me, like especially like during the holidays and stuff, because it can be
Yeah.
such a stressful time,
Yes.
I will be in the kitchen and it just like kind of centers me. I'm just
Yes.
okay. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good now.
Oh, if someone comes in the kitchen, I look at them like, what do you want? What is the problem? They're like,
This
oh,
is
what are
me
you
time.
cooking? Yeah. I'm like, I just have to do something.
Get
You'll see
out.
it
Get out.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Well,
And
I've had
just
her baking. I've had her baking.
True.
It's incredible.
Justin recommended me to an agency, which is like the kindest thing you can do for an actor. And I made him brownies for that. And then he horrendously injured his arm and shoulder. And so to me, the best cure for that is chocolate chip cookies. So I made that. And Brendan, who plays my husband, had a really tough week. And so I made him a coffee cake. And I only ask that you tell me how it was. Like, you can't just take it. You have to also message me if you liked it, if it was dry, what happened. But I got pretty good reviews from those two.
Yeah. And the cookies came with this.
Yes, you got to say feel better soon.
well, wow. Okay. So first off, not only this is my takeaway. Not only are you a talented actor, but there is a good chance that you will bake for other people on set if you are cast.
Let that be a bribe to the many directors out there casting people that I come with desserts.
It's wonderful. I don't think you can ask for more. So
I'm going to put it on my...
you should absolutely. So Justin, what happened?
Yeah.
I was sitting at my desk editing, and I've had a bad shoulder for a long, long time anyway. I was redlining for a long time. I knew that the moment was coming, that everything was going to just kind of go sideways. And the morning of the last day of filming, second to last day, because we had to push Brendan's filming back. But what was originally supposed to be the last day of filming, my scene, that whole scene, the morning of, I ended up getting rushed in with medical emergency. My shoulder, I thought it was dislocated. They did a series of imaging. Long story short, I need a shoulder replacement. And so I had to rewrite that scene with Jimmy in a cast or in a sling, because I was in a sling because my arm was immobile. And I had refused pain meds because I needed Jimmy to be in pain. So knowing that I was going to be filming that evening, they had offered me a couple of shots. The cortisone shot was going to come later, but they had a numbing thing. They could have hit me in 3 separate spots and numbed the shoulder for like 6 to 8 hours. And then they gave me oral meds that could, do the trick a little or do the trick a lot, right, as they do. And so I just didn't take anything. I refused the shots, and I just kind of rolled with it and was in a lot of pain. Color correcting that sequence was challenging because my head was a little bit purple. The blood pressure was pretty high. So at some points when things were really hurting, it was not hard to sell it.
Sure.
Not hard to sell it. And when I was in the scene, if you notice, I've got my arm in the sling, and then every so often I'll lean forward. Well, the reason that I would occasionally lean forward and then all of a sudden I would be in more pain again was that if my shoulders separated away from my body even a half inch, it was agony. So I would just put myself in more pain. If I started to feel like I was getting comfortable, I would just hurt myself again. And it kept it genuine,
Fair.
So yeah, Em was kind enough to make me cookies and bring me the Feel Better Soon envelope with like some like medical patches, and it was very thoughtful.
What? That's very nice, and I hope you're mending up pretty well.
Oh no, I have to get a shoulder replacement.
Okay, well,
Yeah. So that's a whole like 7 month recovery process. I'm just staving it off for as long as I possibly can.
sure, sure. Well, good luck with all that, man.
Thank you.
That's a tough thing, but
Mhm.
you're a tough guy, so I'm sure you'll be fine and come back raring after it. Can you remind our listeners where they can find you?
Oh, sure. SlashvilleStudios.com, Slashville Studios on Instagram, or Justin Makes Movies on Instagram. And Slashville's got a YouTube channel as well. And I've kind of stepped away from the Welcome to Slashville podcast for a little bit. I'll get back to it when I'm able. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to plug that. I was going to say, you got your own podcast.
I do. I got up to 10 episodes, and I got to take a break for a little bit.
Hey, dude, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Producing your own show is not always the easiest thing. And the fact that, I mean, you put out 10 episodes in like a matter of what, 2, 3 months or something?
It was just one a week. It was just a series of external factors that, it's just not the right time to continue the podcast. I want to kind of revisit it when the time is right.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, trust your gut on that. I'm
Yeah.
sure when the time is right, you'll know and you'll get back to it. But until then, follow Em, follow Justin. Both of you, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, for our listeners, go check out Stockings Songbird. It is only available on physical media. Get it through the Slashville Studios website. There will be a link in the show notes. Justin, thank you.
Thank you,
so
Neil.
much.
This was so fun. I
Thank
love
you.
And thank you for tuning in. You can find out more about what Justin is up to next and grab your copy of Stockings Songbird at slashvillestudios.com. You can follow Justin at Slashville Studios on Instagram and YouTube, or at Justin_makes_movies on Instagram. You can also follow what Em is up to next at M Genovese on Instagram, or at let.m.eat.cake_, which is her baking channel we talked about on Instagram. All of which are linked in the show notes. Hi friends, Neil from the future here. A quick announcement that I'm pretty excited to share with you. We are expanding Midnight Horror Picture Show. On top of our regular monthly interviews, we're going to be launching Midnight Horror Picture Show Sideshow next month, where myself and friends will be discussing horror films, novels, games, and the like. Before anything else, I'm a horror fan, and I'm stoked at any opportunity to talk about horror media. Sideshow will be in the mainstream for Midnight Horror Picture Show, so you don't need to follow anything new. Just make sure your notifications are on wherever you listen to us. Also, what do you think of a Midnight Horror Book Club? We've already picked the first book we're going to read, Keith Rawson's Coffin Moon. So if you want to join us, send your comments to midnighthorrorpictureshow@gmail.com by September 13th, and we will try to read them during our discussion. Please make sure to subscribe to Midnight Horror Picture Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would be so kind as to leave a 5-star review, it's the best way to help build this platform for indie horror creators to be seen. You can find us on Instagram at Midnight Horror Picture Show. Our theme music is by Nick Ferrari. And check out our sister show, Dead Pine Archives, where we dive deep into urban legends, cryptid tales, and local lore. Midnight Horror Picture Show will be back before the end of August. We had a time-sensitive interview with Eric Steele, founder of the Horror Film Roulette competition, and want to get that out to you before this year's kickoff event on September 1st. So expect that episode in about 2 weeks. And check out horrorfilmroulette.com if you want to be a part of this year's competition. Until then, stay spooky and keep supporting indie horror.